Ancient builders aligned entire cities using only the stars and sun. This forgotten astronomy guided kings and shaped our world's most enduring monuments. You are about to discover the sophisticated science that let civilizations from Egypt to the Americas harness the cosmos, a knowledge system so advanced it rivals modern engineering. By the end, you will understand how celestial patterns were encoded into stone, revealing a lost chapter of human genius that challenges everything we thought we knew about the past. How did a society without telescopes achieve such impossible precision? And why was this cosmic connection deliberately erased from history? What does our own reliance on technology say about the wisdom we have left behind? The night sky was their constant companion, a vast and predictable clockwork of lights. Ancient cultures did not just look up in wonder, they observed with a scientist's eye, noting the sun's slow journey north and south across the year, the moon's faithful cycles, and the steady march of star patterns. This was not casual stargazing, it was a rigorous, lifelong study of celestial patterns, a science born from necessity. Their survival depended on knowing when the rains would come, when the rivers would flood, and when to plant the seeds. From this need, they developed a celestial calendar of astonishing accuracy. They identified the two solstices, the days when the sun reaches its highest and lowest points in the sky, and the two equinoxes, the moments of perfect balance between day and night. These were not abstract ideas, they were critical markers in time, the foundation upon which empires were built. As leading archaeoastronomer Dr. Anthony Aveney explains, this was more than just calendar keeping. It formed a complete cosmology, a unified vision where the order of the heavens was directly mirrored in the order of human life on Earth. This belief that the cosmos and the community were intimately linked informed everything from religious rituals to royal authority. By marking a solstice sunrise with a single standing stone, a community could demonstrate its connection to the divine rhythm of the universe. This celestial blueprint provided a framework of absolute certainty in an uncertain world. It was the first and most important tool, the intellectual bedrock that made the great alignments of temples and pyramids not just possible but necessary. That deep understanding of celestial cycles found its most spectacular expression in the power of the sun itself. The sun's annual journey was the most reliable and powerful clock they possessed. Its rising and setting points shifted along the horizon throughout the year, but at the solstices it seemed to pause. These were the ultimate anchors in time, the days of longest and shortest light, and ancient builders used these fixed points as their primary guide for orientation. They engineered entire landscapes to interact with these celestial events, from the Egyptians along the Nile to the Maya in the dense rainforests. Architects designed temples and monuments to capture the sun's rays on a single, specific date. The alignment was a form of sacred technology. It transformed a beam of light into a symbol of divine favor, a confirmation of the king's authority, and a signal for the agricultural cycles that sustained the entire civilization. Consider the Great Tomb of Newgrange in Ireland, a massive stone structure older than the pyramids of Giza. For most of the year, its inner chamber lies in deep, permanent darkness. But for a few mornings around the winter solstice, as the sun crests the horizon, a narrow roof box above the entrance perfectly channels a single, brilliant shaft of sunlight. This beam travels down a long passageway and dramatically illuminates the central chamber for just 17 minutes. This was not an accidental feat. It required generations of meticulous observation and precise engineering. a project that spanned lifetimes to capture that one moment of solar rebirth in the depths of winter. This was solar worship made manifest in stone. Such mastery over the sun's light was not just a spiritual achievement, it was a profound political tool. Kings and pharaohs consistently claimed a direct personal connection to the sun god by constructing a temple that only they could activate, or that glorified them with a divine spotlight on a sacred day. They demonstrated their unique role as the intermediary between the heavens and the people. These solar alignments legitimized their rule, uniting entire populations under a common cosmic order that they alone seemed to command. The stone itself became a testament to their power, a permanent contract written in light and shadow between the king, the people, and the sun. But the sun was not the only celestial power they learned to harness. The moon offered a different kind of rhythm, a softer, more frequent pulse that governed the night. Its predictable cycle of waxing and waning provided a natural calendar measured in months, not seasons. This lunar clock dictated the timing of religious ceremonies, the scheduling of market days, and the celebration of community festivals. While the sun marked the grand annual sweep of time, the moon orchestrated the intimate monthly rhythm of human life. In the great city-states of Mesopotamia, the moon god Sin was one of the most important deities. His earthly homes, the massive step temples known as ziggurats, were not randomly placed. They were carefully oriented toward the moon's most extreme rising and setting points, events known as lunar standstills. These alignments were a form of divine architecture, physically linking the temple to the path of the lunar deity. When a priest-king issued a decree or performed a ritual from such a ziggurat, he was doing so under the direct gaze of the moon, reinforcing his authority as the chosen communicator with the gods. This was astronomy as statecraft. Far across the world, the Maya developed an even more precise lunar science. Their surviving bark paper books, known as codices, contain intricate tables tracking the moon's movements with astonishing accuracy. They could predict eclipses and knew the exact length of the lunar month. This knowledge was not just academic, it was intensely practical and strategic. Maya rulers would schedule military campaigns and royal coronations to coincide with specific lunar phases, believing the moon's energy could influence the outcome of human affairs. A battle launched under a full moon might be blessed with power, while a new moon could be the perfect time for a secretive, strategic move. For the ancient builder, this lunar calendar was an essential project management tool. Construction milestones, from laying a foundation stone to dedicating a completed temple, were scheduled in harmony with the moon. This practice wove the cosmos directly into the fabric of daily existence, making the celestial an active participant in every aspect of community life, from the most sacred rite to the most mundane task. Yet beyond the wandering paths of the sun and moon lay the fixed stars, a grand and unchanging map painted across the night sky. These stellar constellations became the ultimate navigational guides, their positions locked in a predictable dance that ancient cultures learned to read with perfect clarity. For long-distance travelers and visionary builders alike, the stars were a celestial compass, a global positioning system written in light. The cluster of stars known as the Pleiades, for instance, was a universal signal. Its first appearance in the pre-dawn sky told farmers in Greece when to plant their crops and told sailors in the Pacific that the season for safe voyaging had begun. This was a science of timing and direction that spanned the globe, but the stars were far more than practical tools. They were the very substance of myth. Cultures from the Aboriginal peoples of Australia to the tribes of North America saw in these patterns their ancestors, animals, and gods, weaving intricate stories that connected the human world directly to the cosmos. This celestial mythology was then physically carved into the earth. The three great pyramids at Giza in Egypt are a perfect monumental example. They are not arranged randomly. Their layout on the desert plateau mirrors the three stars of Orion's belt with an astonishing precision. For the Egyptians, the constellation of Orion was associated with Osiris, the god of death, rebirth, and the afterlife. By building these colossal tombs to mirror his celestial form, the pharaohs were creating a divine machine, a staircase of stone designed to project their souls directly into the eternal kingdom of the stars. Their power was thus anchored not just to the earth but to the heavens themselves. This same principle of stellar mirroring guided the greatest open ocean navigators the world has ever known, the Polynesians. Without a single compass or chart, they embarked on voyages across thousands of miles of empty ocean. Their secret was a profound knowledge of star paths. They memorized the precise points on the horizon where specific stars would rise and set, using them as fixed steering marks. As one star climbed too high, another would take its place, creating a continuous celestial highway across the water. This knowledge was so precious it was passed down orally from master to apprentice, a living library of the night sky that allowed them to settle the most remote islands on the planet. For a king, claiming descent from a star or a constellation was the ultimate source of legitimacy. It placed their royal bloodline outside of human history, anchoring their authority in the timeless, perfect order of the cosmos. And for the builders who translated this cosmic order into stone, they were not merely constructing buildings. They were building permanent gateways, creating a sacred geography where heaven and earth met, reinforcing a cultural identity that was literally written in the stars. This celestial knowledge was far too powerful to remain in the hands of just anyone. It became the guarded secret of a specialized class, the priest astronomers who served as the direct line of communication between the palace and the cosmos. These were the true power brokers behind the throne, the master interpreters of the sky's complex language. Their role was to translate the silent movements of planets and stars into practical advice for their kings, shaping the fate of nations. They were part scientist, part spiritual advisor, and part political strategist, all rolled into one. In the great courts of Mesopotamia, a king would never think to declare war, consecrate a new temple, or even plant the royal crops without first consulting his celestial advisors. These experts maintained the earliest known observatories, tall temple towers from which they meticulously tracked the nightly dance of the gods. Every celestial event was a potential message. A lunar eclipse might signal divine displeasure, while the appearance of a comet could herald the birth of a great leader or the fall of a dynasty. The Babylonians became the undisputed masters of this craft. Their astronomers kept detailed records on thousands of clay tablets, noting the positions of planets with a precision that would not be matched for centuries. They could predict lunar eclipses and understood the cyclical patterns of Venus. This was not done for pure science, but for the very survival of the state. Their observations were compiled into massive omen texts, which the king's priests would consult as a celestial guide to governance. If the omens from a planetary alignment were unfavorable, a military campaign might be delayed. If the stars were auspicious, a new law would be proclaimed to maximize its divine favor. This system created a powerful feedback loop. A successful harvest or a victorious battle, events that could easily be attributed to chance, were instead interpreted as proof that the king had correctly read the heavens and acted in accordance with the god's will. It legitimized his rule and reinforced the authority of the astronomical priests who guided him. The very architecture of the empire reflected this sacred science. When a new ziggurat was constructed, its foundations were laid only after the stars were in the correct configuration. its doors were aligned to capture the first light of the equinox sun or the glow of a specific moonrise, physically embedding the priest astronomer's knowledge into the heart of the city. This was governance by celestial decree, a system where the sky itself was the ultimate political advisor, and those who could read it held the keys to power. Stonehenge rises from the English plains as a silent stone question mark. Its massive sarsen stones, arranged in their famous circle and horseshoe, are far more than a primitive monument. They form a sophisticated astronomical instrument, a celestial observatory carved from the landscape itself. The most famous alignment is with the summer solstice sunrise. On that longest day, if you stand at the center of the circle looking northeast, you will see the sun crest the horizon directly over the outlying heel stone. A blade of light would have pierced the monument's heart, a dramatic event that likely drew people from across the region for ceremonies that affirmed their place in the cosmic order. But the sun was only part of the story. The arrangement of the stones also appears to capture the moon's most extreme movements. The 4 station stones, positioned in a smaller rectangle around the main circle, align with the points of the moon's major and minor standstills. These are the lunar equivalent of the solstices, the most northerly and southerly points the moon reaches in its complex 18.6-year cycle. Tracking this required not just years of observation, but generations, a continuous project of watching and recording that was passed down through centuries. How did a society without written records achieve such a feat? The answer lies in the sheer duration of its construction. Stonehenge was not built in a single lifetime. It was a project that spanned over 1,500 years, with each phase reflecting a deepening understanding of the sky. The earliest earthwork enclosure, built around 5,000 years ago, already had alignments to the sun and moon. The famous large stones were erected centuries later, their placement requiring an advanced knowledge of geometry and an immense, coordinated labor force. This was not the work of isolated druids, but of a complex, organized society capable of long-term planning on a grand scale. The monument served as a sacred clock that synchronized human life with the heavens. Its alignments would have dictated the timing of seasonal gatherings, agricultural cycles, and profound religious rituals. It united practical science with spiritual belief, transforming the very land into a permanent interface between the community and the cosmos. The true purpose of Stonehenge was to make the intangible rhythms of the sky tangible, to give them a form in stone that could be seen, touched, and gathered within. It stands as a powerful reminder that our ancestors were not just building with rocks, but with time and light itself. The Great Pyramid of Giza stands as the ultimate expression of celestial ambition carved in stone. Its base is a near-perfect square, aligned to the 4 cardinal directions with an error of less than 1/15th of a single degree. This was not a symbolic gesture, but an act of breathtaking precision. To achieve this, Egyptian architects used a simple but brilliant tool called a merkit, a forked stick with a plumb bob hanging from it. By sighting on a specific, never-setting circumpolar star as it crossed the meridian, they could trace a perfect north-south line across the desert floor. This single alignment, established with such elegant simplicity, became the foundational axis for the entire colossal structure. But the celestial connections reach far beyond the pyramid's footprint. Deep within the Great Pyramid, narrow shafts angle upward from the king's and queen's chambers. For a long time, their purpose was a mystery. We now understand these were not air vents, but star shafts, meticulously engineered to point directly at specific constellations. One shaft targets the star Sirius, associated with the goddess Isis. Another is aimed at the constellation of Orion, the celestial embodiment of Osiris, the god of the afterlife. This was a spiritual technology designed to guide the soul. The Egyptians believed that after death, the pharaoh's spirit would travel up through these shafts to join these eternal gods in the night sky. The pyramid itself was a launch vehicle for the soul, a machine built to bridge the earthly and divine realms. For Pharaoh Khufu, this cosmic architecture was the very source of his power. By constructing a monument that mirrored the heavens, he was physically demonstrating his divine right to rule. The pyramid was his permanent claim to godhood, a guarantee that his journey to the stars would succeed. It was a statement that the king's authority was as immutable and perfectly ordered as the cosmos it reflected. This is the profound duality of these ancient wonders. They are masterpieces of practical engineering, built with mathematical genius, yet they serve a deeply spiritual purpose. They are at once a tomb, an observatory, and a passport to eternity. They force us to reconsider what we label as primitive, revealing a civilization that could move mountains of stone because it first mastered the map of the sky. Far to the south, in the heart of the Yucatan jungle, another civilization turned celestial knowledge into pure public theater. The Pyramid of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza stands as a masterpiece of this sacred engineering. For most of the year, it is a breathtaking but silent monument. Yet on the spring and autumn equinoxes, something miraculous happens. As the sun sets on these 2 days of perfect balance, the play of light and shadow across the pyramid's northwestern staircase transforms. The corner of the step terraces casts a series of triangular shadows onto the side of the main stairway. These interlocking shapes connect to form the undulating body of a massive serpent, appearing to slither down from the temple at the summit to meet its stone head at the base of the pyramid. This is the descent of Kukulkan, the feathered serpent god. The entire spectacle lasts for just a few hours, a fleeting but powerful demonstration of the king's direct connection to the cosmos. This was not a hidden secret for priests alone, but a grand public spectacle designed to awe thousands of gathered citizens. The architectural precision required to achieve this effect is staggering. The builders had to calculate the exact angle of the staircase, the precise height and placement of each terrace, and the specific orientation of the entire pyramid to capture the sun's rays at that single, perfect moment. They transformed the entire structure into a solar clock that only told time twice a year, marking the agricultural turning points of planting and harvest. This was astronomy made visible to everyone, a shared experience that unified the community under a common myth and a common ruler. Just a short walk from the main pyramid stands the Caracol, a unique round tower that functioned as a sophisticated observatory. Its narrow windows are not randomly placed. They are precisely aligned with the extreme rising and setting points of Venus, a planet the Maya considered a warlike god. Tracking its cycles was critical, as the appearance of Venus in the morning or evening sky was believed to influence the outcomes of battles and the fate of kings. The priest astronomers working within the Caracol could use these alignments to create precise calendars and issue prophecies. A king could then schedule a military campaign to coincide with an auspicious Venus phase, claiming the favor of the gods for his conquest. This system wove together science, religion, and politics into an unbreakable tapestry. The spectacular descent of the serpent shadow was the public proof of this cosmic connection, a drama written in light that legitimized the ruler's power and affirmed the people's place in a divinely ordered universe. These ancient masterpieces were not born from magic, but from a toolkit of elegant simplicity. The most fundamental tool was the humble gnomon, a simple stake driven into the ground. By meticulously tracking the length and direction of its shadow throughout the day and across the seasons, an astronomer could map the sun's entire journey. The shortest shadow of the day pointed true north, while the longest and shortest shadows of the year marked the solstices. This basic device was a complete solar observatory in a single stick. For measuring the passage of time at night, they used water clocks, containers that dripped water at a steady rate, allowing them to time the movement of stars across the sky with remarkable consistency. These were not crude guesses, but refined techniques born from generations of patient observation. The true pinnacle of this ancient engineering, however, was pulled from a shipwreck off the coast of Greece. Known as the Antikythera Mechanism, this complex bronze device was a clockwork universe in a box. With a series of interlocking gears, it could predict the positions of the sun, moon, and planets, and even forecast lunar eclipses. It was an analog computer of staggering complexity, a technology so advanced that nothing like it would appear again for over 1,000 years. Its very existence shatters our timeline of technological progress. On the ground, these principles translated into practical building. To lay out the foundation of a temple, surveyors would use long alignment rods to sight on a distant horizon marker, like a specific notch between two mountains. They could also wait for a key star to rise directly over that marker, locking the building's orientation to the cosmos. This method allowed for precise alignments over miles, turning the entire landscape into a celestial reference point. How did they achieve such accuracy without lasers or satellites? They used their eyes, their minds, and an intimate knowledge of the world around them. This practical astronomy was the invisible engine behind every stone they set. It reveals a world where innovation was not about having the most powerful tools, but about understanding the deepest principles of nature. The real wonder is not the stone they moved, but the knowledge they mastered to move it into perfect harmony with the heavens. This cosmic blueprint did not stop at individual temples. It expanded to shape entire cities, turning urban grids into vast maps of the heavens. From the Valley of Mexico to the plains of China, ancient planners laid out their greatest metropolises as earthly reflections of the celestial order. The city itself became a sacred instrument, with its main avenues and districts aligned to the sun, the stars, and the four cardinal directions. This was more than just an act of faith. It was a profound act of engineering that merged the practical with the divine. A city oriented to the cardinal points maximized sunlight for its buildings and ensured efficient drainage for its streets, solving basic urban problems with cosmic solutions. But above all, this alignment was a permanent, inescapable declaration of power. Every citizen walking a perfectly straight north-south boulevard was living within a design that proclaimed their ruler's authority was as fixed and true as the North Star. Consider the magnificent ruins of Teotihuacan. Its colossal avenue of the dead runs for miles, flanked by monumental pyramids. This central axis is not aligned to true north, but to a point 15.5 degrees east of it. Why such a specific, seemingly odd orientation? Archaeoastronomers discovered that from the vantage point of the city's main ceremonial plaza, this alignment perfectly targeted the setting point of the Pleiades star cluster on a key date around 2,000 years ago. For the people of Teotihuacan, the Pleiades was deeply significant. Its annual cycle in the night sky marked the beginning and end of the agricultural season, and it was woven into their creation myths. By aligning their entire city to this celestial marker, they were grounding their urban existence in the rhythm of the cosmos and the story of their own origins. The city was not just built near a sacred mountain, it was built in direct conversation with the stars. This principle was a global phenomenon. In ancient China, the construction of a capital city was a cosmological act of the highest order. The city was conceived as a symbolic center of the universe, a microcosm where the emperor, the son of heaven, mediated between the human world and the celestial realm. The ideal city was a perfect square, oriented to the cardinal directions, with its walls, gates, and main thoroughfares laid out on a strict grid. This design mirrored the perceived order of the heavens and reinforced the Confucian ideal of a harmonious, hierarchical society. The Forbidden City in Beijing is the ultimate expression of this philosophy. Its layout is a meticulous representation of the cosmic order, with the emperor's throne positioned at the very center of the world, aligned on a north-south axis that connected him directly to the celestial pole. To walk its streets was to move through a landscape of absolute power, designed by astronomers and realized by builders. Creating such a city required more than just a grand vision. It demanded immense centralized authority. Organizing thousands of laborers, acquiring vast quantities of building materials, and enforcing a single, unified plan across a sprawling metropolis was a feat of logistics that only a powerful, centralized state could achieve. The very act of building a celestially aligned city was a demonstration of that state's control over both people and knowledge. The ruler was not just building walls and roads, he was taming the wilderness and imposing the perfect, eternal order of the heavens onto the chaos of the earth. This embedded a celestial harmony into the daily life of every citizen, from the merchant in the market to the farmer in the field. Their entire world was consciously designed to be a mirror of the sky, a constant, silent reminder that their civilization was part of something vast, ordered, and divine. The street you walked on was not just a path from your home to the temple. It was a line in a star chart, a thread in a cosmic tapestry that connected your every step to the motion of the heavens. While the stars provided a fixed map, the planets were the unpredictable wanderers. Their movements read as urgent messages from the gods. Kings and emperors did not see random dots of light, but celestial ambassadors whose positions could foretell triumph or disaster. The planet Venus, in particular, held immense sway over the fate of empires. In Mesopotamia, its appearance was tied to the powerful goddess Ishtar, who governed both love and war. When Venus shone brightly as the evening star, it might be interpreted as a sign of Ishtar's favor, encouraging a king to launch a military campaign. But if it disappeared from the sky and then reappeared as the morning star, the same event could be read as an omen of divine wrath, forcing the same king to postpone his invasion and seek the gods' forgiveness through elaborate rituals. The entire machinery of the state could be halted or accelerated by the journey of a single planet. This was not mere superstition, it was a core component of statecraft. The royal astronomers of Babylon maintained meticulous diaries, recording planetary positions alongside major historical events like battles, famines, and the deaths of kings. Over centuries, they began to see patterns correlating the cycles of the planets with outcomes on the ground. This created a self-fulfilling prophecy, a feedback loop where a king who acted on a favorable omen and won a battle would see it as divine confirmation, further cementing the authority of the astronomical priests who advised him. The sky was the ultimate political advisor, and its words were written in the slow dance of worlds. Far across the globe, the Maya developed an even more precise and demanding relationship with Venus. Their astronomers calculated its cycle with breathtaking accuracy, knowing it took 584 days for the planet to return to the same position relative to the Sun. They saw Venus as a malevolent deity, the twin of the Sun, whose phases directly influenced the destiny of rulers and the outcome of war. Maya kings would schedule their coronations to coincide with specific, powerful moments in the Venus cycle, such as its first appearance as the morning star. This was believed to imbue their reign with the planet's fierce, assertive energy. More chillingly, historical records carved on stone stelae suggest they timed raids and attacks to align with these celestial events. A military campaign launched under the gleam of the morning star was a sacred act, a form of celestial warfare where the king marched with a god at his back. This planetary astronomy introduced a volatile, dynamic element to governance. Unlike the steady rhythm of the sun or the reliable stars, the planets moved on their own complex schedules. Their retrograde motion, where a planet appears to reverse its course in the sky, was often seen as a particularly dire warning, a celestial stumbling that signaled disruption and chaos on Earth. A king facing a retrograde Mars, the god of war, might suddenly dismiss his generals or enter into a hasty peace treaty. This practice wove astrology directly into the fabric of statecraft, creating a world where the fate of nations hung on the perceived interdependence of cosmic and earthly realms. Every royal decision, from naming an heir to raising taxes, was filtered through this celestial lens, making the ancient ruler not just a political leader, but a master interpreter of the sky's ever-changing narrative. The stars were more than just points of light, they were a canvas for the human imagination. Across the globe, ancient cultures spun intricate stories from the constellations, transforming silent patterns into a vibrant, living mythology. These were not simple fables for entertainment, but a sophisticated mnemonic system, a way to encode complex astronomical knowledge within unforgettable narratives. The Greek story of Orion, the boastful hunter, and his eternal flight from the Scorpion is a perfect example. As the constellation of Scorpius rises in the eastern sky, Orion dramatically sets in the west, a celestial chase that plays out every year. This myth did more than just explain why you never see the hunter and the scorpion together. It perfectly mirrored the seasonal shift in the heavens, marking a specific and predictable time in the agricultural calendar. The story made the observation memorable, turning an abstract celestial event into a dramatic, personal conflict. On the other side of the world, the Navajo people saw the tight cluster of the Pleiades not as random stars, but as the Diliae, the sacred primordial ancestors who placed the stars in the sky. Their first appearance in the evening marked the start of the new year and guided the timing of vital winter ceremonies. This connection wove the stars directly into the community's spiritual identity and seasonal practices. The myth preserved the timing of the Pleiades' return, ensuring that this critical calendrical knowledge was passed down through generations not as a dry fact, but as a sacred story central to their culture. This narrative framework served a dual purpose. It made the vast and intimidating body of celestial observations accessible to everyone, not just the priestly class. A farmer did not need to understand the geometry of the ecliptic to know that when the Great Bear dipped low in the sky, the first frost was coming. He just needed to remember the story of the bear's winter sleep. These myths embedded the calendar into the cultural consciousness, ensuring that vital information for planting, harvesting, and migrating was never forgotten. Furthermore, the stories reinforced the social and spiritual order. A king who claimed descent from a celestial hero, like Hercules or Orion, was anchoring his authority in the timeless, moral order of the cosmos. The myths explained why the world worked the way it did, from the changing seasons to the path of the sun, and they placed humanity within that grand design. By listening to the stories of the stars, a person understood their place in the community, the natural world, and the universe itself. This was how the deepest secrets of forgotten astronomy were kept alive for millennia, not on clay tablets, but in the hearts and minds of the people, whispered around campfires and sung in rituals, ensuring that the guidance of the cosmos would never be lost. But this profound connection to the cosmos did not last forever. A great forgetting began to settle over the ancient world, a slow dimming of the celestial light that had guided kings and builders for millennia. This decline was not a single event, but a gradual erosion, accelerated by the rise of new empires and new gods. As powerful, centralized religions took hold, many of the old astronomical practices were labeled as pagan superstition. The intricate star lore that had once been the bedrock of royal power was now seen as a threat to a new, unified theological order. Knowledge that had been passed down through generations of priest astronomers was deliberately suppressed, its practitioners sidelined or silenced. The celestial gods were dethroned, and with them fell the science that had celebrated them. One of the most catastrophic single blows to this accumulated wisdom was the destruction of the great library of Alexandria. Within its vast halls were housed countless scrolls containing the astronomical observations of the Greeks and Egyptians, detailed records of planetary cycles, star catalogues, and geometric theories. When the library burned, entire worlds of understanding turned to ash. We can only guess at the sophistication of the knowledge lost in that fire, a single event that set human comprehension of the heavens back by centuries. The decline accelerated further during the colonial era, a time of violent cultural assimilation. European conquerors systematically dismantled indigenous knowledge systems across the Americas, Africa, and the Pacific. They saw the complex star myths of the Maya and the precise navigational charts of the Polynesians not as science, but as primitive magic to be erased and replaced. This was not just a loss of stories, it was the deliberate silencing of a different way of seeing the universe. The fragile oral traditions that held the keys to celestial navigation and seasonal calendars were broken, and with them, our window into a complete human understanding of the sky. This great forgetting created the gaps we struggle to fill today. Why can we only guess at the full purpose of Stonehenge? Why are the meanings behind certain pyramid shafts still debated? It is because the chain of transmission was severed. The living teachers who could explain the nuances, the master builders who held the architectural secrets in their heads, are long gone, their voices stilled by the tides of history and conquest. This loss forces us to ask a difficult question. In our relentless pursuit of a global, technologically driven future, what other forms of wisdom are we allowing to fade away? The story of this forgotten astronomy is a powerful reminder that knowledge is fragile. It shows us that progress is not always a straight line upward, but a path with dizzying peaks and deep valleys of loss. Our modern understanding of the cosmos, for all its power, is built on the fragments of a much older, more intimate relationship with the stars, a relationship we are only now beginning to piece back together. The silence of these ancient stones is finally being broken. A new scientific field has emerged, armed with satellites and software, to listen to their celestial stories. This discipline, called Archaeoastronomy, is the key that is unlocking the true genius of the ancient sky watchers. It merges the meticulous digging of archaeology with the precise calculations of astronomy, all viewed through the cultural lens of anthropology. Researchers are no longer just guessing at alignments, they are proving them. Using three-dimensional computer models, they can recreate the exact sky over a temple on the day it was founded, revealing which star first shone down its main axis. Satellite imagery allows them to see grand city plans and landscape alignments that are invisible from the ground, patterns that stretch for miles. This scientific verification is crucial. For a long time, the idea that ancient people built with such cosmic precision was dismissed as coincidence or fantasy. Now, the data is overwhelming. Scientists like Clive Ruggles have spent decades in the field, from the windswept Scottish Islands to the high Andes of Peru, carefully measuring the orientations of thousands of monuments. His work has shown, beyond any doubt, that the patterns are intentional and widespread. A solitary standing stone in a Scottish field might seem random, but when its alignment is plotted against hundreds of others, a pattern emerges, one that consistently points to the rising moon at its most extreme northern position. This is not a one-off discovery, it is a global phenomenon. In the Incan Empire, the Kukulkan temple in Cusco was not just a building, it was the center of a vast cosmological map. Lines called ceques radiated out from it like spokes on a wheel, connecting hundreds of sacred sites, or huacas, across the landscape. Modern archaeoastronomers have found that many of these lines are aligned with the rising and setting points of the sun, moon, and stars on significant dates. The entire valley was engineered to be a calendar, a sacred geography where every hill and spring was a marker in a celestial clock. This interdisciplinary approach restores the context that was lost for centuries. It is not enough to know that a window in a Mayan tower points to Venus. We must also understand what Venus meant to the Maya, how its appearance was woven into their rituals and their wars. By combining the hard data of star positions with the soft data of myth and history, Archaeoastronomy gives us a much richer, more human picture. It allows us to see these sites not as cold, static ruins, but as active participants in a living culture that saw the sky as a vital, speaking presence. This work is a form of historical justice, restoring credit to the architects and astronomers whose sophisticated science was erased by time and conquest. It confirms that the perfect north-south alignment of the Great Pyramid was no accident, and that the serpent of light slithering down Kukulkan's pyramid was a masterstroke of engineering. We are finally learning to read the blueprint of the ancient world, a blueprint written not on paper but in stone and light across the face of the earth. This celestial knowledge was not reserved for kings and priests alone, it fed the world. For the vast majority of people in these ancient societies, the most critical application of astronomy was profoundly practical. It told them when to plant their seeds. The annual flooding of the Nile River was the lifeblood of Egypt, but its timing was everything. If farmers planted too early or too late, the crop would fail and famine would follow. The Egyptians found their signal in the sky. Just before dawn each year, after a period of invisibility, the brilliant star Sirius would reappear just above the horizon. This event, known as the heliacal rising, consistently coincided with the Nile's imminent floodwaters. That single, predictable star was their annual alarm clock, a celestial notification that the river was about to deliver its life-giving silt and water. The entire agricultural cycle of one of history's greatest civilizations was set in motion by the reappearance of a distant sun. This was not magic, it was precise, repeatable science applied to survival. Across the ocean, the Maya watched the Pleiades with the same intensity. For them, the cluster's first pre-dawn appearance signaled the start of the rainy season and the time to prepare the fields for maize. If the stars appeared clear and bright, it was a good omen for planting. If they looked hazy or dim, it might mean a poor harvest and farmers would delay. This was agricultural risk management guided by the stars. By tracking these celestial events, priest astronomers created the world's first almanacs, calendars that broke the year into manageable, predictable segments. They gave farmers a reliable schedule for plowing, sowing, weeding, and harvesting. This transformed agriculture from a desperate guess into a calculated science. The ability to produce a consistent food surplus was the fundamental engine of civilization itself. It meant that not every person in the community had to work the land. This surplus freed up labor, allowing for the specialization of skills. It enabled the emergence of artisans, scribes, soldiers, and the immense workforces that built the pyramids and the ziggurats. The grand monuments we marvel at today were not created by slaves driven by whips, but by a society prosperous enough to feed thousands of people while they worked on projects that spanned generations. The stone for the great temples was literally paid for with the grain grown under the guidance of the stars. This is the profound, grounding truth of forgotten astronomy. It was the indispensable tool that turned seasonal uncertainty into food security, and food security into economic stability and cultural flourishing. The cosmic connection was not an abstract spiritual idea. It was the very foundation of daily life, the steady celestial rhythm that allowed a society to grow from a village into an empire. The king's power to command the construction of a pyramid was only possible because the astronomers' knowledge had already ensured there was enough bread to feed the builders. This celestial authority was the ultimate political tool, a divine right written not on parchment but in the stars themselves. Across the ancient world, kings and emperors wove their identities directly into the fabric of the cosmos to legitimize their rule. In China, the emperor held the sacred title of Son of Heaven. He was not just a political leader, but a cosmic intermediary, personally responsible for maintaining perfect harmony between the human world and the celestial realm. If a natural disaster struck or the stars behaved erratically, it was seen as a direct reflection of his failure to uphold this sacred duty. His mandate to rule came from the heavens, and the heavens themselves would judge his performance. This was a powerful yet precarious position. A single eclipse could be interpreted as a severe celestial reprimand, threatening the stability of his entire dynasty. In Egypt, this connection was even more direct. The pharaoh was not merely a representative of the sun god Ra. He was considered the living embodiment of Ra on earth. His daily rituals and the very architecture of his temples were designed to mirror the sun's journey across the sky. When the sun rose each morning, it was a reaffirmation of the pharaoh's divine power and the eternal order he maintained. To challenge the king was to challenge the cosmic order itself, a treason not just against the state, but against the universe. But how did a ruler maintain this celestial legitimacy in the face of unpredictable events? Eclipses, comets, and rare planetary conjunctions were the wild cards of ancient politics. A sudden solar eclipse turning day into night could spark panic and be seen as a terrible omen of the king's downfall. Yet a clever ruler, advised by his priest astronomers, could turn this potential crisis into a powerful demonstration of his authority. His advisors, having predicted the event through their careful observations, would assure the public that the king was in communication with the gods. He would perform elaborate rituals to bring back the sun, and when the light returned as he knew it would, his people would see it as proof of his divine power. He had commanded the heavens, and the heavens had obeyed. This was celestial statecraft at its most sophisticated. A comet streaking across the sky might be publicly declared as a message of divine approval for a new law or a military conquest. The king positioned himself as the sole interpreter of these cosmic signs, the essential link without whom the people could not understand the will of the gods. This fusion of astronomy and politics created a self-perpetuating cycle of control. By embedding their authority so deeply into the observed order of the universe, these rulers made their power seem as natural and inevitable as the sunrise. Their rule was not a matter of human opinion or military strength alone. It was a fundamental law of existence. The loyalty of the people was therefore not just a political obligation, but a spiritual one, a necessary act to keep the world in balance. The king's word was quite literally written in the stars. This celestial knowledge was a universal human impulse, yet it blossomed into 1,000 different forms. Each culture looked up at the very same stars, but they saw unique patterns and wove them into systems perfectly tailored to their world. For the Polynesian voyagers, the sky was a vast, open ocean. They did not use constellations as we know them, but instead divided the horizon into a star compass, a mental map of precise points where specific stars would rise and set. A master navigator lying in his canoe would feel the swell of the ocean and watch this star highway, knowing that keeping a certain star directly over the left outrigger meant he was on course for a distant island. His entire world was a moving vessel guided by a fixed celestial map. On the vast Australian continent, Aboriginal cultures developed the concept of songlines, intricate oral maps of the land that were also celestial charts. A songline is a sequence of sacred sites, each one connected to a particular star or celestial event. To navigate across hundreds of miles of desert, a traveler would sing the song of the land, and each verse would correspond to a specific landmark and its companion in the night sky. The song was both a map and a deed of ownership, a way of walking through the physical world while simultaneously tracing a path through the mythic cosmos above. This was not just navigation, it was a way of singing the world into existence with every journey. In ancient India, Vedic astronomers turned their attention to the moon's path, dividing it into 27 lunar mansions known as nakshatras. Each of these sectors was associated with a specific star or star cluster, and together they formed a celestial calendar that dictated the timing of every important ritual, wedding, and coronation. The position of the moon in a particular nakshatra was believed to infuse an event with that star's unique energy, weaving celestial influences directly into the fabric of social and spiritual life. Meanwhile, high in the Andes, the Inca Empire engineered a landscape-scale observatory. From the Coricancha, the golden temple at the heart of their capital Cusco, 41 invisible lines called ceques radiated outward. Each ceque was a sacred pathway connecting hundreds of shrines or huacas across the mountains. Modern research shows these lines were not random. They were meticulously aligned with the rising and setting points of the sun, moon, and stars on the solstices and other key dates. The entire valley of Cusco was a colossal calendar, a sacred machine where every hill and spring served as a marker in a celestial clock, synchronizing the empire's agricultural and religious cycles with the heavens. From the open Pacific to the high deserts, these systems reveal a stunning truth. The drive to read the sky was a global phenomenon, but the language each culture used was its own. This was not a single forgotten science, but a chorus of different voices all describing the same cosmic wonder. The Polynesian saw a compass, the Aboriginal elder saw a song, the Vedic priest saw a ritual timetable, and the Inca engineer saw a network of power. They all looked up and saw a guide for human life, proving that our connection to the cosmos is as diverse and ingenious as humanity itself. The same cosmic knowledge that guided kings also fueled the most ambitious engineering projects of the ancient world. This was not a separate science, but a single, unified discipline where understanding the heavens directly enabled the manipulation of the Earth. To align a structure with a star rising miles away required more than just observation. It demanded advanced surveying and a mastery of geometry that could translate a celestial line into a terrestrial one. The true marvel lies in how this cosmic insight solved intensely practical problems. Consider the life-giving challenge of water. The Roman aqueducts, those magnificent arched highways for water, are celebrated for their gravity-fed design. But their success began with celestial alignment. Surveyors used the stars to lay out the aqueduct's initial path over vast distances, ensuring a consistent, gentle slope from the mountain spring to the city. A single degree of error in their stellar reference could mean the water would flow too slowly and stagnate, or too quickly and burst the channels. The stars provided the long, straight baseline that made this life-sustaining infrastructure possible. Far earlier and on a different continent, the builders of the Nazca lines in Peru performed an even more staggering feat of celestial engineering. They swept the dark desert pavement aside to create enormous geoglyphs of animals and geometric shapes, figures so vast they can only be comprehended from the air. Many of these lines are not random. They function as astronomical sightlines, pointing directly to the spot on the horizon where the sun would rise on the June solstice, or where certain bright stars would first appear to mark the coming rains. Creating these alignments required a form of large-scale surveying that seems almost impossible. Without the ability to fly, how did they ensure the straightness of a line over a mile long, or the perfect proportions of a giant spider? They likely used a series of stakes and cords, sighting on distant horizon markers that themselves were likely aligned with celestial events. This was a project that turned the entire desert plateau into a cosmic calendar and a ceremonial space, a permanent interface with the gods written into the very fabric of the land. This collaborative genius between the astronomer and the engineer pushed the boundaries of the possible. The astronomer provided the fixed points in the sky, the eternal constants. The engineer then devised the methods to transpose those constants onto the chaotic landscape, whether by carving a channel through a mountain or scraping a line across a desert. The result was a world where function and symbolism were inseparable. A Roman aqueduct was not just a water pipe, it was a testament to an empire's power to bring cosmic order to nature. The Nazca lines were not just a calendar, they were a sacred landscape that invoked the deities controlling rain and fertility. These structures stand as a powerful rebuttal to the idea that ancient people were primitive. They were the product of a sophisticated dialogue between the mind and the cosmos, a collaboration that allowed them to achieve a precision we still struggle to fully explain. These cosmic blueprints became the very language of sacred architecture, a way to carve the order of the heavens into the heart of a civilization. Temples and tombs were not just buildings, they were miniature universes in stone, designed as perfect reflections of the cosmos. In Hindu tradition, this took the form of the mandala, a complex geometric diagram representing the universe. The entire temple was laid out as a physical mandala, with its walls and towers mapping a divine cosmology. A worshipper walking through its concentric courtyards was symbolically journeying from the outer world of illusion toward the inner sanctum, the sacred center where the human soul could meet the absolute. This was architecture as a spiritual pathway, a guided tour of the cosmos designed to lead one to enlightenment. Far across the world, the Great Pyramids of Mesoamerica embodied a different but equally powerful cosmic symbol, the sacred mountain. These towering structures were not just tombs or platforms for temples, they were man-made mountains, echoing the primordial mounds of creation from which life first sprang. They were the axis mundi, the central world tree connecting the underworld, the earth, and the heavens. To climb their steep steps was to ascend toward the realm of the gods, a physical act that mirrored a spiritual ascent. This symbolism transformed the pyramid from a simple monument into a living conduit between worlds. Nowhere is this celestial ambition more breathtakingly realized than at Angkor Wat in Cambodia. This vast temple complex is a scale model of the Hindu universe. Its central towers represent the mythical Mount Meru, the home of the gods and the axis of the cosmos. The surrounding walls symbolize the mountain ranges at the edge of the world, and the immense moat depicts the cosmic ocean. But this was not just a static symbol, it was a functioning astronomical instrument. The entire complex is precisely aligned so that on the morning of the spring equinox, the sun rises directly over the central tower. This perfect alignment captures the sun's energy at a moment of cosmic balance, flooding the sacred space with light and symbolizing the creation of the world anew. Even more astonishingly, the layout of Angkor Wat's main towers appears to mirror the stars in the constellation of Draco, as they would have appeared at the temple's foundation in the 11th century. This was a deliberate act of sacred cartography, stamping the pattern of the dragon onto the earth as a permanent claim of celestial order. By embedding these cosmic patterns into stone, the builders achieved something profound. They created an environment where a worshipper did not just hear about the cosmos, they could walk through it. Every carved wall, every aligned corridor, and every towering peak was a lesson in the structure of the universe, reinforcing a cultural identity that was divinely ordained. For the king who commissioned such a project, this was the ultimate projection of power. His authority was no longer just a human invention. It was woven into the very fabric of reality, a necessary part of the cosmic plan that the temple so magnificently displayed. The building itself became a portal, a place where the divine could descend to earth and the human could touch the heavens, all under the watchful gaze of a ruler who claimed to command both realms. The wisdom etched into stone and star charts did not vanish, it simply changed form. Our modern science is deeply indebted to these ancient sky watchers, inheriting a legacy woven into the very language we use to describe the cosmos. We still divide a circle into 360 degrees, a convention passed down from the Babylonians, who used a base 60 number system that perfectly suited their astronomical calculations. The constellations we teach our children, like Orion the Hunter and Ursa Major the Great Bear, are the same mythological figures that guided kings and navigators thousands of years ago. This is not a coincidence, but a continuous thread of human curiosity stretching across the ages. The rigorous observations of Babylonian astronomers, who meticulously recorded planetary movements on clay tablets, provided the raw data that later fueled Greek geometric models of the universe. This foundational work traveled through time, preserved and expanded by scholars in the Islamic world, until it reached Renaissance thinkers in Europe. When Nicolaus Copernicus proposed a sun-centered solar system, he was building upon a scaffold of ancient data and ideas. Johannes Kepler, in his quest to understand planetary orbits, relied on the precise observational records kept by his predecessor, Tycho Brahe, who himself was a direct heir to this long tradition of celestial measurement. Their revolutionary breakthroughs were not created from nothing. They were the culmination of a scientific conversation that began in the royal courts of Mesopotamia. Today, this ancient knowledge finds new life in surprising places. The complex mathematics of orbital mechanics, which allows us to land rovers on Mars and place satellites in perfect geostationary orbits, has its conceptual roots in the first attempts to predict the wanderings of planets. Even archaeologists now use software to decode the alignment of monuments, confirming the accuracy of ancient star catalogues with modern astronomical data. We are only now beginning to fully appreciate the sophistication of their techniques, recognizing that their celestial blueprints were not just spiritually profound, but scientifically sound. This enduring legacy underscores a humbling truth. Our current understanding of the universe, for all its technological grandeur, is built upon a foundation laid by countless generations of observers who had nothing but their eyes, their minds, and an unwavering determination to read the story of the stars. We stand on the shoulders of the very kings and builders who first gazed upward, their forgotten astronomy now woven into the fabric of our own quest for knowledge. The real story of ancient astronomy is far more compelling than any myth of alien intervention. These persistent fictions, while entertaining, inadvertently rob our ancestors of their greatest achievement, their own remarkable ingenuity. The notion that beings from another world directed the construction of the pyramids, for example, completely disregards the mountains of archaeological evidence we have today. We have found the worker settlements at Giza, complete with bakeries, infirmaries, and administrative records that detail the vast, highly organized labor force of skilled Egyptian artisans and temporary workers. We have uncovered the quarries, the transport ramps, and the copper tools that made this colossal project possible. To credit aliens is to ignore the sophisticated social and economic machinery of one of history's most capable civilizations. It suggests that humanity was incapable of such feats on its own, a disservice to the generations of architects, astronomers, and laborers whose collective genius is etched into the limestone and granite. Similarly, the search for perfect supernatural alignments can lead us astray. It is true that ancient builders used celestial events as primary guides, but they were also practical people working within their landscape. A temple might be aligned to a solstice sunrise, but its precise orientation could also be influenced by the lay of the land, the path of a river, or the location of a sacred grove. When we find a stone circle in Britain that seems to point to a mountain in Greece, we must consider the role of coincidence. With thousands of monuments and countless celestial points, some random alignments are statistically inevitable. The true marvel is not a single, impossible line, but the consistent, verifiable pattern of intentional alignments to key solar, lunar, and stellar events across cultures and continents. This was not a perfect science handed down from the gods, but a human science forged through painstaking trial and error. It was built on generations of careful observation, where failed alignments were noted and corrected in the next structure. This process of refinement, of learning from mistakes, is the true mark of intellectual achievement. By stripping away the fantastical, we do not diminish these ancient wonders. We honor them, we see them for what they truly are, testaments to the power of the human mind to observe, to reason, and to build a meaningful world under the vast starry sky. But this rediscovery of ancient skies is not without its own shadows. As we piece together the celestial knowledge of the past, we must also confront profound ethical questions. Who truly owns this wisdom? For centuries, the intricate star lore of indigenous communities was dismissed as primitive myth, only to be later extracted by outsiders for academic study or commercial gain without permission or respect. Taking sacred Aboriginal astronomical knowledge, for instance, and publishing it without context or collaboration perpetuates a long history of cultural theft. It treats living tradition as a free resource for the taking, rather than as the intellectual and spiritual property of a people. This is more than just an academic concern, it is a matter of justice. The same star patterns that guided Polynesian navigators across the open ocean are part of their cultural identity, a birthright that should not be packaged and sold without their consent. And when ancient alignments become tourist attractions, the consequences can be equally damaging. A sacred solstice site can be overrun by crowds, its spiritual significance eroded by the noise of commerce and the click of cameras. The very act of celebration can become a form of desecration, turning a deeply meaningful ceremony into a spectacle. So how do we move forward? The path lies in collaboration, not extraction. This means working directly with descendant communities, listening to their elders, and acknowledging their contributions as the rightful heirs and interpreters of this knowledge. It means understanding that a star chart is not just a map of lights, but a living narrative that holds a people's history, lore, and connection to country. This ethical dimension transforms our entire quest. It reminds us that this forgotten astronomy is not a dead artifact to be collected, but a vibrant heritage that continues to guide and sustain cultures today. By approaching it with humility and respect, we do more than just recover lost facts. We honor the voices of those who first read the stars, and we enrich our own understanding of how human beings can live in profound harmony with the cosmos. A laser pulse fired from an aircraft is now peeling back the jungle canopy to reveal lost cities. This technology, known as LIDAR, is the new eye of archaeoastronomy, scanning entire landscapes to create detailed three-dimensional maps of the ground beneath the trees. In Cambodia, these digital surveys have exposed the true scale of the Angkorian Empire, uncovering vast urban networks and intricate canals that were completely invisible from the ground. The most stunning revelation is how these sprawling city plans were deliberately aligned with the sun. Wide ceremonial avenues and the foundations of hundreds of smaller temples are oriented to capture the solstice sunrises and sunsets, proving that this celestial order was not confined to a few major monuments, but was woven into the very street grid of an entire civilization. We are no longer just studying individual temples, we are deciphering cosmologically planned metropolises. At the same time, artificial intelligence is learning to read the sky through ancient eyes. Researchers are feeding thousands of artifact inscriptions, star charts, and monument orientations into machine learning algorithms. These systems can process more data in a day than a human scholar could in a lifetime, spotting subtle patterns and correlations that would otherwise remain hidden. An AI might analyze a set of Mayan glyphs and identify a previously overlooked reference to a planetary conjunction, or cross-reference the alignments of 100 stone circles to find a common lunar target that had escaped notice for centuries. This is not about replacing human intuition, but about augmenting it with a powerful new tool for pattern recognition. The sheer volume of new data is staggering. Every flight of a LIDAR-equipped plane, every satellite pass, and every new algorithm generates a flood of potential discoveries. A single field season can now produce a lifetime's worth of research material, pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible. This technological leap promises to settle long-standing debates. Were certain alignments intentional or mere coincidence? With precise laser mapping and statistical analysis powered by AI, we can move from informed speculation to mathematical certainty. It allows us to test our theories against the entire archaeological record, not just a handful of convenient examples. We are on the verge of a new golden age of discovery, one where the secrets of the past are not buried in the dirt, but hidden in plain sight within vast digital landscapes. The next great breakthrough in understanding our ancestors may not come from a shovel, but from a server farm processing the ghostly outlines of a city that has slept beneath the forest for 1,000 years. That celestial connection is not locked away in history books. You can stand in the very spots where ancient kings and builders once stood and witness the same cosmic alignments with your own eyes. Many of these powerful sites are open to the public, waiting for you to step into their sacred geometry. If you find yourself at Stonehenge on a summer solstice morning, you can join the crowd and watch the sun crest directly over the heel stone, just as it has for thousands of years. Or travel to Chichen Itza during an equinox and see the shadowy serpent descend the pyramid staircase, a spectacle of light that transforms stone into myth right before you. You do not need to be an expert to feel the significance of that moment, when the architecture, the sun, and the calendar converge into a single, breathtaking event. This is history you can experience, not just read about. To deepen your journey, the modern world offers tools that would have been the envy of any ancient astronomer. Your smartphone can become a portable planetarium. Simple apps can overlay the constellations onto your night sky, showing you exactly where Orion or the Pleiades would have been on the horizon centuries ago. You can track the path of Venus or identify the North Star, learning to see the sky as a dynamic map. With this knowledge, even a local park can become an observatory. Notice where the sun sets behind a familiar hill during the weeks around a solstice. That subtle shift along the horizon is the same celestial clock our ancestors used to mark the seasons. Your personal observations can become part of a larger quest. Around the world, a growing movement of citizen scientists is helping professionals rediscover lost alignments. Local astronomy clubs often organize star parties at historical sites where volunteers use their telescopes and knowledge to help survey potential astronomical features. You could join an online project that analyzes satellite imagery of ancient earthworks, searching for patterns that might point to a solstice sunrise or a lunar standstill. Every pair of eyes looking up at the sky adds to our collective understanding, helping to piece back together a fragmented wisdom. By engaging in this way, you are doing more than just sightseeing. You are participating in a timeless human tradition of looking up and seeking meaning. You transform abstract history into a living, breathing experience, feeling a direct link to the minds that first mapped the heavens. This connection reminds us that the wonder of the cosmos is not a relic of the past, but a constant invitation to explore, to learn, and to find our own place under the stars. Our journey through the stars and stones reveals a timeless truth. The forgotten astronomy of the ancients was never a single science, but a seamless fusion of observation and belief, of engineering and myth. It was the practical tool that fed empires, the spiritual compass that guided kings, and the artistic vision that carved the cosmos into the very streets we walk upon. This celestial connection empowered rulers to build legacies in stone and light, transforming the chaotic beauty of the night sky into a language of absolute power and profound wonder. Their legacy is not merely in the silent monuments they left behind, but in the enduring human quest to find our place in the universe. That same spark of curiosity lives in us today. The next time you find yourself under a starry sky, pause for a moment. Look up and see more than just distant suns. See the same constellations that dictated the planting of empires, the same planets that guided voyages across unknown seas, and the same moon that illuminated rituals older than memory. That celestial map is a shared inheritance, a story written in light waiting to be read anew. We would love to hear your own thoughts and experiences. Have you ever witnessed a solstice alignment or felt a connection to an ancient site? Share your stories in the comments below. If these historical mysteries captivate you, subscribe to keep exploring the hidden chapters of our shared past. Together, let's continue unraveling the secrets written in the stars.